So I don't know if it tells us when it begins recording, but
yes, it's recording.
Okay, great. So before we get started today, we just wanted to go over the agenda and review kind of some community agreements today. So this is kind of our agenda for today. We're going to be working through some collective understandings of how we understand the economy of capitalism today, and then dive into solidarity economy, visions and values. And then we'll be doing a breakout activity where we kind of get to see some of the different examples and work together and reflect back. And so we'll be talking about those primarily today. And so just kind of to set the stage for us, we're all here engaging and participating, and we just have these to have some kind of ground guidelines for us to collectively be together. So remember that participating fully is really key, especially the way we facilitate. We really enjoy and love everyone to engage. And whenever we're coming together, just remembering that everyone is a teacher and a learner, and sometimes individually we might not know all the things, but together we know a lot. And with that, remember to take care of yourself and to take care of each other. We'll be here for a while, so as your needs come up, make sure to step away if you need to, get water. If you have any tech support needs, reach out on the chat and we'll help you. And just kind of remember to go with the flow. Expect non-closure, because this will be a 3-part series. We won't be able to wrap up all the things or have all the conversations, but we're hoping that in the next few sessions, those questions and conversations will be held. So in your small groups, remember to say your names and pronouns when you're speaking. And you can describe yourself when you're speaking. And just remember, if you're not speaking, mute yourself, but really having one mic, one voice. It's like when we're in person, if we're all talking over each other, we can't hear, but the same is true on Zoom. And just speaking from a place of love and compassion when we're reaching out to each other in conversation or discussion. And doing this helps us kind of reach each other with curiosity and questions. So also pausing before speaking gives us all a chance to kind of catch up with the technology. And just shifting power relationships is really recognizing if you've been talking a lot, if you normally take up a lot of space, you might step back and have other people kind of step up in that moment and really share with active listening as you're moving through this. And if there's any challenges within the breakout rooms, whether it's technical or personal, you can always leave and there'll be someone in the main room to support you. So thank you. I think with this now, we're going on to the next slide, and we're going to do a small group activity. But if anyone has any questions or comments, let me know. In the chat works as well. And so, okay. So for our first kind of breakout, we're going to be talking a little bit about popular education, which really is just kind of recognizing that we want you all to meet other people, and also that we know that each of you are bringing in a lot of knowledge of the experiences that you each have. And when we talk together, we can find patterns and look for new information and start building that knowledge together. And so when we do that, we can use our own analysis, our collective analysis, to make plans to change the world that we're in and what we're learning together. And since this is a workshop about transforming the economy and how economic systems kind of play out for us in our own lives and our own communities, we want to just talk about that. So this kind of spiral that we're looking at, we're going to start with sharing our experiences within the economy that we live in, so that we can kind of get grounded and look around like, what is this thing that we live in? How do we move in this economic world, and look for patterns in that, and hopefully that's going to help us share kind of about some of the solidarity economy frameworks and look and reflect between the differences of what we're trying to build towards and what next steps we can take to build towards that. So, as I said, just starting off with your experiences, we're going to get you all into small groups and take a couple minutes for each person to introduce yourselves and share something about what is your experience in this economy. What does this economy mean to you? What has it meant for your family, your community? This is just kind of a quick reflection moment to get to know each other and to reflect on our own knowledge. So when you're ready, you can put people into breakout rooms, and I stop sharing. And I'm going to put this in the chat so you all can reflect on those questions.
Everybody's back? Okay, great. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a nice conversation. I hope you were able to meet folks. What we're going to do next is we're going to draw from your conversations. We're going to do another word cloud, or we're going to do our first word cloud. So I'm going to ask you to, here's you can use your phone or you can use your computer. You can type in menti.com, menti.com. And once you get to menti.com, you type in that code, 24975591. So on your phone or on your computer, menti.com, and then the code is on the screen, 24975591. And you're going to type in a word or a phrase that speaks to the question, capitalism. What does it mean to you? And once everybody's there, hopefully in Menti, and you've got the code, we're going to give you another couple seconds. And then we're going to project the word cloud. So hopefully people have got there. Menti.com. Code is 24975591. If anybody is having a problem, you can come off mute or put it in the chat. Okay, I don't see anything in the chat, and I don't hear anything in, nobody's come off mute. So I'm assuming everybody got this. So let's go ahead and share the word cloud.
I'm not quite there yet. This is Tori.
Okay, menti.com. And then I forget what the code is. Let's see. Does anybody have it handy? Let's see. Right, thanks. So menti.com, code is 24975591. Okay, let's go ahead and share the word cloud. Okay, so you can see that the word cloud is getting populated. The bigger the word, the more often it's been mentioned. So we're seeing oppression. That's pretty much staying in the middle. Competition, exploitation, displacement, scarcity, inequality, greed, fear, dominance, money, harm. Things like working yourself to death, not enough for all, punishment, money-centered, unsustainable, drone, 1% rules, worker bee, power imbalance, objectifying, struggle, all for some, Immigration. Okay, so that gives you a sense. It looks like the word cloud, most people have entered their words, a couple more, but we can move on from here. So keep these terms in mind. And that's a lot about the impact of capitalism. And now what we're going to do is talk about what is capitalism. So what is the definition of capitalism? So I am an economist by training, and as Amy mentioned, I am a longtime member of the Center for Popular Economics, which is a collective of progressive to radical economists. And our mission is to help people better understand how the economy works. And I have often heard in my many years of doing popular economics trainings, people say, oh, the economy, it's just too complicated. It's just too hard to define. And then it becomes capitalism, sorry, not the economy, but capitalism. People say it's too hard to define. It becomes this catch-all for everything that we don't like. And I think it's important to have a bit more of a precise definition of what it is. So the next slide, these 5 characteristics are how we define capitalism. We've been using it in the Center for Popular Economics in our trainings for well over 40 years, and it really has stood the test of time. So here are 5 characteristics. One alone will not do, right? They interact. So let me run through these. The first one is the private ownership of the means of production. Sometimes we call it the MOPS. The means of production are the stuff, it's the stuff that you need to produce. So it's the land, it's the factories, it's the buildings, it's the machinery, it's the tools, it's the materials. Okay, so private ownership of the means of production, and those are the capitalists. The second feature is wage labor. There are workers who are hired. The workers do not own the means of production. They do not control production. They don't control the decision about how profits are distributed. They can fight, they can unionize, they can fight these battles, but they don't have a legal decision-making role that's structured into the capitalist business, right? So right here, you have the capitalists and you have the workers, and right there, you have class struggle. The third thing is profit maximization, pretty clear. The fourth is commodity production, so things are produced for sale, not for use. Not necessarily for use. Things are produced for sale with a profit maximization in mind, right? So things are not always produced that society needs. Often things are produced that are most profitable. And the final feature is market exchange of goods and services. Okay, so for example, I know that I've had conversations with people that work in a worker cooperative that say, oh yeah, we're a capitalist enterprise because we engage in commodity production. We produce things for sale and we sell them in the marketplace. And actually that's not correct from an economist perspective. It's not correct because what is lacking there is that class divide, right? The workers in a worker co-op, the workers are the owners, so that class divide is not present. That's why you need all of these, right? Just because something engages in commodity production doesn't make it capitalist, or just because markets have been around long before capitalism. Okay. All right, so that's our simple definition of capitalism. Next slide. So why does it matter? Why does it matter to have some clarity about what is capitalism? The lack of clarity about what capitalism is can easily lead to just reforming and thereby strengthening capitalism. So, for example, think about the New Deal coming out of the Great Depression, coming out of the Great Depression. It really saved capitalism. A lot of the fundamental, really good and laudable aspects of the New Deal were actually stolen from a socialist agenda, and all these, all these social welfare programs, the legitimization of the government's role in stabilizing the economy, all these regulatory powers, all these aspects of the New Deal stabilize capitalism and serve to quell the significant social unrest that existed. A time when the socialist and the communist parties were very strong and growing. So it's just an example of how capitalism is so adaptable. So clarity about what the long-term vision is helps to ensure that, for example, solidarity economy is building transformative reform, sometimes called non-reformist reform. A current example of a struggle is the Green New Deal, right? Right now, the way it's articulated in the mainstream, it doesn't talk a lot about ownership and control. So it's a struggle to get the Green New Deal to talk about worker co-ops, to talk about community-owned energy production, things like that. Okay, so that's why it matters. Okay, let's see, next slide. So Leslie's gonna do this part.
Thanks, Emily. So, especially because we're kind of like steeped in what we know and what we're experiencing, we just kind of want to take a moment to really visualize, well, what is this other world? What are the worlds that we imagine beyond capitalism? And so I'm just going to ask you all to close your eyes if that feels comfortable, and just kind of take a moment to imagine what your vision is for a just and sustainable world. And imagine you're already there, like the work you're doing right now, the work we're all doing to move towards that. We've gotten there, and just take a moment to take it all in. What do you breathe? What do you smell? What are you hearing? Maybe you're walking around and you're on a sidewalk or a pedestrian path. What are you seeing? What kind of buildings are there? How are people getting around? What do the parks look like? Who's there? Do you know the people you're there with? Who else do you see? And so now that you're here at your destination, what are you here to do? What are people doing, engaging in? Are they working? Are they visiting with each other? Volunteering, shopping? How are we interacting with each other? You can take some time to kind of scan around you and imagine what this is like and what it might feel like in your body to be there, to be with your people there. So just take another minute or so to really sink into that feeling of imagining what's there with you in this just and sustainable world that we've built, and who's with you, what's happening there. And take a moment to just come back to where you are now in the room you're in here. And we're going to take a couple of seconds to transition and ask you all to kind of come back from this other world, but really think about what are the values that brought that vision about. And so we're going to ask you to go to Menti again and use the same code. And just take a moment to think about your answers to that question, and I'll get that set up for us. Oh, sorry, one sec. I think we might actually be adding to the wrong cloud. 1 second, folks. Uh-oh. Okay, so folks want to start adding your values again. We should be able to see it pretty soon here. And it's the same code, 524975591.
Leslie, I'm getting a message saying the question is not open for voting.
Oh,
So am I.
Same here.
so 1 second. Let me refresh this.
I ran into this before as well, and you had to like close one presentation, maybe the old presentation from the previous word cloud.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, I went to another phone
Okay.
because I couldn't get on the same.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, folks. Let's try again. I think hopefully this time it'll work. Does someone want to try and see if it's
I'm
letting
getting,
me-
I just did a refresh and it's still not open.
It says, please wait for the presenter to open it.
It's not as cool, but we could put our answers in the chat.
Yeah, let's try and do that. I'm so sorry, y'all. I don't know. It's not letting me open the voting again.
The joys of technology.
I know.
Fine. We've all been there. We can do it in the chat.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks for going with the flow today. Strange. Okay. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a bit and see what's going on in the chat. Beautiful. So we have clean air, community, art, shared space, cooperation, safety, abundance, autonomy. Everyone has an offering. Equity, respect, resilience. All beings are brilliant. The land is alive. We're mutually accountable. People of all ages are interacting. is teamwork, mutual care, vibrancy, community care, autonomy, abundance. We have just what we need, individuality, fairness, worry-free, abundance, humility, connection. It's green, lush, and welcoming. It's connection, no scarcity mindset. We're open to being changed, harmony, trust, plenty for everyone. See people, not problems. We're free to dream, free to be, live to your fullest potential. Everyone is valuable. Inclusion and universal design, safety, no need to compete for scraps. These are really beautiful, you all. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, what a beautiful list. So thank you everybody for that. So we're gonna go from there and keep that list of values in mind. And now we're gonna go into talking about what is the solidarity economy. So first of all, solidarity economy is grounded in values. And if you're thinking about that list, there was really pretty great alignment with these 5 values that the US Solidarity Economy Network uses. The list of values will look somewhat different in different parts of the world, different cultures, different countries, different regions, but there is a really common base. And so in the US, this is what we use, these 5. So one is solidarity, cooperation, mutualism, reciprocity, altruism, symbiosis, etc. Participatory democracy in politics, work, community, right? Equity in all dimensions, race, class, gender, ability, etc. Sustainability. And just to note that the solidarity economy embraces the rights of Mother Earth. And pluralism. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. It's not dogmatic. And in the words of the Zapatista, a world in which many worlds fit. Oh, it got cut off. A world in which many worlds fit. Okay, let's go on. So let's put it all together. So first of all, about this definition, this is the definition that aligns with the US Solidarity Economy Network, that's USSEN, USN, and REPES. So REPES stands for the Intercontinental Network of the Solidarity Economy. And REPES went through a 2-year international consultation process to get us all on the same page. There's lots of differences from place to place, but we're striving to find what is our common shared definition that we could agree on. Okay, so we agreed that solidarity economy, first of all, it's a framework. It's a framework that connects solidarity economy practices and people that are aligned with solidarity economy values, which we just talked about. And this framework is pulling these practices together, solidarity economy practices and the people working in this space together to articulate a post-capitalist world. So solidarity economy is very clear that we're committed to a post-capitalist vision of the future. Some people think that we can reform capitalism. We're not necessarily, certainly I'm not throwing stones. That's a position, right? That's a position. I just disagree. And solidarity economy, folks working in this space disagree, right? Our analysis is we are not going to be able to get to that more just and sustainable world through capitalism. So that's a difference of solidarity economy, where we're just if if somebody believes that we can reform capitalism and get to that more just and sustainable world, then they really shouldn't be working using a solidarity economy framework. There's a clash there. Okay, so then also it's a global movement, just on the ground. RIPES is the international network that I mentioned. The ILO is the International Labor Organization. They have an annual solidarity, it's SSE is Social Solidarity Economy. So they have an SSE Academy every year. There's the United Nations Task Force on the Solidarity Economy. There are a couple countries that have enshrined solidarity economy in their constitutions, Bolivia and Ecuador. And there's a number of countries that have national policy frameworks to support solidarity economy. Okay. Next slide. So just a quick imagine what solidarity economy might look like in your life. So instead of capitalism, we have solidarity economy. Instead of a police state, we have transformative justice. Instead of monopoly, we have community-controlled businesses. Instead of a boss, we have worker owners. Instead of a landlord, we have community land trusts. Instead of banks, we have credit unions, which are by definition a form of a cooperative. Instead of representative democracy, we have participatory democracy. Instead of landlords, we have tenants unions. Okay, next slide. So here's another way to think about solidarity economy. So as an economist, I sort of think in terms of economic sectors. So production, distribution, exchange, consumption, finance, governance. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but you can see that there are examples of solidarity economy in all of these sectors, right? There is a huge foundation to build on, but right now, these practices are sundered from each other. They're all in their silos. They don't see each other as part of the same movement to create another world. And so part of what solidarity economy is trying to do is connect these up so we're pulling together in the same direction and see each other as aligned and connected. A couple things just to mention here. Note under, for example, production and reproduction, solidarity economy absolutely embraces care work and non-monetized or unwaged, unpaid care work as part of solidarity economy. If you have to pay for childcare, if you have to pay for elder care, it's very expensive, right? So just because it's not paid for, it's still really valuable economic activity. So we want to be very clear about that. Another thing that I want to just highlight is that under governance, and thinking about the role of the public sector or the role of the state, and there's some debate about this, right? So there are anarchists that would embrace solidarity economy. They might have some different ideas about the role of the state, but that's a beautiful thing about solidarity economy. We don't have to all agree, right? We're pluralist in our approach. But assuming that we accept that there's a role of the state, probably a lot of these things are keepers, right? So public schools, national parks, public libraries, probably some policies and regulations, right, to protect health and safety, things like that, right, are keepers. So what you can see from here is there is a huge foundation. This is not an exhaustive list. What they all have in common is they are collectively owned and democratically managed practices. Let's see. Next slide. Okay, so I do want to make a an argument for why solidarity economy is a very powerful framework. There are many, many, many sort of alternative economic frameworks. There's new economy, there's community economy, there's green economy, there's circular economy. I mean, there's many, 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 many different strategies, paradigms, models. Why solidarity economy? I would argue that it's a very big tent, but it's also clearly defined. So a lot of those other ones that I mentioned, they're particularly not clear about what their vision is vis-a-vis capitalism. It's just mushy. So solidarity economy is a really big tent. It embraces plural pathways, a world in which many worlds fit, but it is also clearly defined. It's a global movement. We have legs on every continent in the world other than Antarctica. There is a huge foundation to build upon in all sectors. Some of these are very old, right? We always want to recognize that solidarity economy might be a new framework, but it's drawing on recognizing, trying to connect many practices that are just as old as human beings, right? And human beings have had to use these collective cooperative strategies in order to survive. So many old practices, some are new and some are mainstream, like public schools, for example, and some are alternative. And all of it is grounded in concrete practices and experiences. So it's not just a theoretical, pie in the sky kind of movement. Okay. Let's see. I think we're taking a break now.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, and what time are we going to now? Actually, we're back on time, are we?
Yeah, we're right on time.
Cool.
So we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and everyone can kind of take care of what they need to. We'll be coming back at 10:37. No, yes, 10:37.
Perfect.
So, thank you all, and thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you. Leslie, are you trying to share music? You're muted.
Yeah, I was gonna share some music. Exactly what you put.
Oh, so Jennifer, if you're there, we could pause the recording.
Okay.
Again.
Now, if you're not already back, hope folks enjoyed their breaks. I'm gonna start my screen sharing again in just a second. Okay. So hopefully everyone is back now. I think folks might still be on off video. And we're just gonna dive right back in. Thank you, everyone. So for our next activity, we're gonna be in breakout rooms again and kind of reflecting on what we're learning about solidarity economy today. We wanted to really give folks some concrete examples and what we call stepping stones. And this was developed in a couple of ways, but these stepping stone cards, which we're going to share a separate slideshow that you all will look through in your groups, in small groups. And these stepping stone cards are really going to be just examples of what different projects are happening all over the country, all over the world, and even locally to kind of move towards solidarity economy. And so it's going to look like a lot of different things, but we're just going to have these cards that really lay out the aim and their work and what they're doing. And so in your small groups, there'll be about 4 or 5 of you.
Leslie,
Yeah, can you hear
I
me?
don't know if everybody's seeing this, but I'm just seeing half of the card. Are other people? Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
why. It's not centered. There's a big white space.
It's probably our grid on top of the document that you're looking at. It tends to give you a little box on the other's views.
Let's see. It's really strange.
The other thing that people can do, oh, maybe that'll click, that'll fix it.
Is this
Yeah,
working?
yeah,
Can you
that's
see it
fine
now?
now. Mhm.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to break you out into groups, and in groups you're going to be about in 4 or 5. So take a chance, take a minute when you get in to kind of see if anyone is able to keep track of time and take notes, and if someone wants to volunteer to summarize and report back. We'll be asking for you to share back after you return from small groups. And when you're in groups, make sure to read through the cards. Great, then I think if we're ready and if Jennifer is ready, we can break out into small groups.
Okay, great. I'll open the rooms now.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Everyone might be back.
I hate that 1 minute timer. Who agrees? Who agrees?
Maybe like 2 minutes.
It's so right. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Perfect.
Yeah, it's a little too short, too abrupt when we're trying to finish up.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I apologize for the abruptions, but thanks for joining us again. So we're going to come back and kind of just ask you all to share out your favorite stepping stone card and what are the kind of deeper dive questions you have. So I'll be taking notes as you all are sharing, but we're going to ask for about 1.5 minutes each for you all to share. And if it feels good, we can go in order, or if a group wants to volunteer, feel free to jump up and talk to us a little bit.
Why don't we just go in order, Leslie?
Sounds great. So for group 1, did we have someone who wants to report back?
Hi, Leslie. Yes, I will take that for our group. I think what we said in terms of having more than one person super interested in the model is the Thunder Valley CDC. And I think we acknowledge that because our dominant culture is built on capitalism, we have to look to other cultures, other countries, for the work that they're doing and sort of learn from them. So Thunder Valley being rooted in Indigenous culture, I think there was a lot of interest in just the whole dimensions of the CDC, whether it be education, land trusts, other forms of social capital and asset development, and really just addressing access in a fully dimensioned way. I think that's in part why the CDC was mentioned. So those are areas we would like to learn more about. I pass it to group 2.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia from Group 2. So our group, we decided on for our favorite Gaviotas, and that was or is a self-sustaining community. And what we really liked about this particular card was that there weren't any like weapons, police, jail, mayors. It was really a community who ran the community, who runs the community, and also the focus was on land. So they've planted millions of trees that regenerated the indigenous rainforest, and they've also been able to get income for that. And it seems like this community has a lot of control over, what they want and what they do and how their community looks. We just had more questions about, how do like power dynamics play out in this group, how are intimate partnerships playing out in this community, and how safety works in this community. Thank you.
Hi, I'll be the spokesperson for group 3. So we actually were kind of torn between 2 cards that we really liked, so I'm going to try and speak really fast. The first one is Just Words, which is they're all about language justice. They do work with translating and interpreting, and they're from the Amherst area. But with Zoom, they're able to go international, which is very exciting. We felt that they were really important because they're helping to interpret a system that impacts all of us. So, like things like civil justice. And they work both on a sliding scale or pro bono, which is really important because I think a lot of times the people who need these services often need pro bono or need, I don't know, sorry, moving on. Also, we were really interested in the community schools because we felt like it creates this kind of hub and meets people where they're at, and it brings services into the schools and kind of creates connections between maybe folks who don't have like a nuclear family, traditional family setting. So they're able to bring in and be connected with their community and services they might not have had access to due to like transportation issues, challenges. And our major questions were kind of like, how do we transition from capitalism to this like post-capitalist world that we're looking at? And how do we make these organizations and these ideas universal? Because they're fantastic, but like we want them everywhere, not just in these little small pockets. And I will pass it to group 4.
I guess I'll go ahead. We really liked a lot of the cards, to tell, just to say, but I think we seem to settle on restorative justice. We felt that there was a lot of ways that all the other ones could come under that umbrella. If you looked at, repairing the harm to the plants, the animals, all human beings that have had lack of access, and that we could, build an equitable community. We really also like the idea of the land trust and the co-ops, and we did some discussion around gentrification that was particularly going on in the Worcester area. So I'll pass to group 5.
All right, we didn't really talk about a spokesperson, so group, if there's anything I'm missing, just jump in. The 2 topics we picked were participatory budgeting, which is a budgeting process that engages the community in putting forth proposals for ideas and then voting and being involved in the budgeting process. The other topic we picked was Wellspring Cooperative, which is a nonprofit that is trying to build a network of different co-ops in the Springfield area and supporting them and starting up their own co-ops, supporting businesses, things like that. And that is the one that we chose as our favorite, just because it's local and just wanting to really get to know the work that's happening here.
I think we're on group 6, and that's us. We had 2 different sort of programs that we were looking at. One is called UBI, where 50 local municipalities level the playing field by giving a basic income to everyone, and seeing if that supports folks in, what the findings are, that the folks are using that money to, further their economic well-being. They're not just spending frivolously. And it was surprising to me that, that many cities have been using that or are using that in some way. So it's interesting to us to say, at least it's a start at leveling the playing field. So that one of the main questions we had was, does it then just drive up prices because it's created within the capitalist economy to fit in some way in conjunction with that? The other thing that we really liked was called Slum Dwellers International, I believe was the name, and where folks in different countries have negotiated with the government to use the land to create, housing, basic housing for citizens who need it. And we were just imagining what that might look like, more formalized or informally, at least in America, where, in cities, one of our participants, Nancy, was talking about how folks, even in the city of Buffalo, were trying to negotiate with landowners over abandoned buildings and how to utilize those for housing. So this Slum Dwellers International sounds like an interesting concept, and how could we apply it, to more, in America, what would that look like?
I think we're on to group 7. We didn't decide, so somebody else let me know if you want to talk. But if not, I'll just jump in. The favorite that we chose was community kitchens. I think for a couple of reasons. The importance of food security and being able to use meals and coming together for mealtime as a space of community and sharing culture and language, and as well as I think just in the quarantine of the pandemic, we're missing being able to have larger meals with communities and things like that. So maybe that was a factor. But so yeah, we discussed, I think we also were really interested in the co-housing and creating like communal spaces to live, really focusing on I think we were drawn to the community aspect of both of those topics. And I think something to kind of dig deeper into is how to really bring together the resources to make a community kitchen happen, and being able to collaborate with local farmers and as a food source, and how to bring together, where the space is happening, who's doing the cooking, and just really getting into the logistics of that.
Is there a group A?
No, there were
I
7
don't think
groups.
so. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing and taking the time to dive into those topics and cards together. So next, we're going to kind of start to wrap up. And we asked you about the deeper dive questions, and thank you for thinking about that, because we're going to have you all kind of vote on some of the things that we're learning about as a way to explore what are the topics we want to continue to talk about in the next few sessions of the workshops. So I'm gonna share the link actually again first for our slides, because I'm gonna ask everyone to go to slide 21. And I'll share it on our screen as well, so I can explain how this is gonna work. But we're basically gonna do dot voting, and everyone should be able to get onto the slides and be able to grab, there's 3 dots at the bottom here, and each person can take their dots and drag it to which ones they're most interested in or want to learn about some more. And that's kind of like, even if you were in another group and you all voted for something, you can be like, oh, actually, but I really want to learn about this because we didn't read about that. So everyone can kind of take their dots and vote on what they want. And you can just keep dragging the dots and there will be more dots underneath. So take a couple minutes. I'm going to play some music as people vote on these options that we've learned about today. And if anyone has questions, feel free to go off mute or put them in the chat.
Leslie, are you putting this in the chat so that we can vote?
Yes. 1 second. Let me change the access. Are people still having access issues?
Might have to just refresh. And then you should have access. Same
Yes.
link.
This says only view only.
Even after you refreshed?
I'll try again.
Connect secure. Interesting. I'm not sure why it wouldn't let you connect securely.
If people can't do it, can we put it in the chat?
Yeah, and I can move the dots for people.
A lot of people are in.
Okay.
I'm going to drop it in one more time into the chat.
It worked after we refresh. You do have to
Okay.
refresh though.
Yeah, you have to refresh. So the same link that's there should work. Just refresh. The other thing is, if there is a topic that fits within solidarity economy, right, that you want to put into the blank, feel free. And we'll take it into consideration when we plan the next 2 workshops. How many do we have here?
Great, so it looks like people are voting. And again, if you weren't able to access it, you can always put in the chat and we can move stickies for you. Thank you, everyone. This is really exciting to see what people are interested in. Are there any more questions or votes that people have?
If people couldn't use the dots, please feel free to just use the chat.
Yeah, I'll do those that you just put in, John.
Leslie, did you get Trisha's yet?
Mm-hmm.
Want me to do that one?
Yes.
Okay.
From
Did we get everybody? Okay.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all so much. This is really fun to see and hear back in the reports of what felt inspiring and what sounded like there's still questions about how it functions and what are the things that people are interested in learning about. So thanks for showing up for that in the small groups and with us today. So we have a couple minutes left and we're just gonna close out this first part of our workshop series. And I just want to ask if folks want to leave a comment in the note, a note in the chat about a connection you made or something you're taking away, if there's something that was helpful to you, or even just a kind of reflection you might want to share. We just wanted to have a little bit of time to see how you all are feeling, and if there's any feedback you want to give us, feel free to leave it in the chat. And as you're doing that, I'd just like to say thank you again to all of you for showing up today, for being present with yourself in this and with each other in this. It can take a lot to be on Zoom calls, and even though we're mostly used to it now, it's good to remind ourselves that it takes a lot, and we did that today, so thank you. And if people feel up to it, I like to close out to kind of take a big breath again and just say thank you together, to your body, to someone else in the group, and kind of remind ourselves that we're back in our bodies. Even though we're on a screen, we're still in our bodies, and to remind ourselves of how we showed up today, how we want to continue to show up today. Maybe think about what you want to take from this workshop today and be willing to bring it into the rest of your day, and think about how we can be in solidarity with each other as we continue to create these worlds together. So any final words people have, feel free to know what's going on in the chat.
So do you, Emily, want to share a little bit about next steps for the April 14th session as we
Sure.
close?
Yeah, so let's see. We're going to do a deeper dive. We're going to look at your feedback about different topics that you were particularly interested, sift through that, and then figure out how to squeeze as much as makes sense into the next 2 sessions. And also the second session will include Jack Patrici is going to do a part about how to work together, right? Like if we're going to move forward together and build anything and connect, we also have to be able to work with each other and within our organizations, our agencies. And so we're going to be processing and interacting and learning around that. So that'll be a part of the second one. And the rest of the time will pretty much be deeper dives into these different topics. And then we'll also build in some time about, maybe next steps. If nothing, we know that everybody's really busy. So maybe there aren't any immediate next steps, in which case we say, we've planted some seeds, who knows what it will bear in the future, and that's great. If there is energy and interest enough to start thinking about actual concrete follow-up in any of these ways, in any of these areas, then we'll have some time to do a little bit of connection around that. So that's the plan. Anything else you want to add, Amy?
I think you did a great job, and I just want to thank you and Leslie for this wonderful